Breaking news. In the dark waters off Venezuela's coast, the United States has seized another ship. No press conference, no dramatic footage. Just steel, silence, and control. This is the second time it's happened, and when power moves twice in the same place, it's not enforcement anymore. It's a warning, because this wasn't about a vessel. It was about who decides what moves and what doesn't. U.S. authorities have confirmed the seizure of a second ship operating near Venezuela. But the details are scarce, intentionally scarce. There are no clear images being released. No full cargo list has been made public, and there's no precise timeline of the operation. All we have is confirmation that the ship is no longer free. In the world of geopolitics, silence often speaks louder than official statements. When information is deliberately withheld, it creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is a powerful tool. It forces adversaries and allies alike to guess, to speculate, to worry. This isn't just an administrative action. It's a carefully managed information operation. The message is clear. We can act without you knowing how, when, or where. The lack of detail isn't a sign of disorganization. It's a sign of absolute control over the narrative. The story is what they choose to tell. And right now, they're choosing to tell us almost nothing. This forces everyone to focus not on the specifics of the cargo, but on the act of seizure itself, on assertion of dominance in the shadows. Wars aren't always fought with bombs and missiles. Sometimes they're fought with paperwork, radar screens, and boarding teams that arrive in the middle of the night. The sea is the real battlefield for a nation like Venezuela. It is the country's lifeline. Its oil, the bedrock of its economy, leaves by ship. The fuel it needs to function arrives by ship. The trade it needs to survive, however limited, depends on ships. When you intercept and seize a vessel, you don't just stop that one shipment of cargo. You inject a powerful dose of fear and uncertainty into every future voyage. Every captain, every shipping company, every insurer has to now calculate a new risk. Will my ship be next? Will my insurance cover a seizure? Is this route even viable anymore? This creates a chilling effect. A silent blockade that functions without a single shot being fired. It's a strategic move to constrict the economic arteries of a nation, turning the open ocean from a global commons into a controlled space. A front line in a very modern, very quiet conflict. The United States calls this enforcement. The official justification will revolve around sanctions, international law, and national security concerns. And on paper, these arguments carry weight. But the ocean has always been a gray zone, a place where legal lines can be blurred. A ship's flag of registry can be changed to a different country. The true ownership of a vessel can be hidden behind layers of shell corporations. The boundaries of territorial waters and international jurisdiction can be stretched and contested. This ambiguity isn't a bug. It's a feature. It is the weapon. It allows a global power to act decisively, to project its will, and to achieve strategic objectives without firing a shot. It is a form of warfare that sidesteps traditional military confrontation, allowing a nation to apply immense pressure and change the reality on the ground, or in this case, on the water, all while operating within a fog of legal plausible deniability. Power is acting, and the outcome is being altered, far from any battlefield. In geopolitics, timing is never accidental. This second seizure comes at a very specific moment. It comes as diplomatic talks stall, as international patience thins, and as the pressure on Venezuela's government quietly rebuilds behind the scenes. This isn't a random act of enforcement. It's a deliberate signal. It is escalation without the headlines that a military strike would generate. It's a quiet turn of the screw, a practical demonstration that the sanctions regime is not just a theoretical document sitting in Washington, D.C. It's a reminder to Caracas and to the world that these sanctions have teeth and that they will be enforced at sea, in the dark, where the global economy is most vulnerable. It serves as a tangible consequence for a lack of progress in negotiations, a way of saying that the status quo is unacceptable and that the pressure will only increase. This is what it looks like when diplomacy is backed by quiet, undeniable force. Faced with this, Venezuela's options are shrinking rapidly. Of course, the government in Caracas can protest. It can issue strong condemnations. It can appeal to international forums like the United Nations, but real power doesn't typically shift in courtrooms or debating chambers. Militarily, attempting to challenge the U.S. Navy at sea would be catastrophic. Economically, the country has very little leverage to retaliate in a meaningful way. Diplomatically, while some nations may offer words of support, few are willing or able to intervene directly and challenge U.S. actions. Each traditional avenue of response is effectively a dead end. And so, the pressure tightens. It's a slow, deliberate squeeze, designed to be suffocating but not explosive. The goal isn't to provoke a war, but to force a change, to make the cost of resistance so high that capitulation becomes the only viable option. The pressure is applied without noise, but it is felt intensely. This isn't just a story about Washington and you can be sure that every sanctioned state around the world is watching this very, very closely. Every international shipping company is watching. Every maritime insurance underwriter is watching. Because if the open ocean, the traditional highway of global commerce, is no longer considered neutral territory, then nowhere is truly safe. If a superpower can unilaterally seize vessels in international or disputed waters based on its own domestic sanctions, then the unwritten rules of global trade are being rewritten. What happens in the Caribbean Sea doesn't stay in the Caribbean Sea. It sets a precedent. It creates a new playbook for economic warfare. It introduces a new level of risk for global supply chains. The outcome of this quiet maritime conflict has the potential to redefine the rules for everyone else. A second ship being seized is not an accident. It is not a coincidence. It is a signa, emitted with cold, calculated precision. The signal is that enforcement of the sanctions policy is tightening. It's a message that tolerance for perceived violations is fading. And it's a declaration that the ocean, which once acted as a vast buffer between nations, is now becoming a front line. The real question is no longer whether this kind of action will continue. The seizure of a second vessel has already answered that. The question now, hanging in the silence over the dark water, was next.